welcome back. I'm that Halloween movie collector, Pat, and I thought we'd do something different today and look at my top 5 cult movies of all time. Now, cult movies obviously are, black comedies, dark comedies, or horror movies. This list is going to be made up of a little bit of, it's not necessarily going to be horror, which is usually the theme of most of the things I'm doing. It's going to be a little bit of both. And going forward with cult films, it's basically movies that may or may not have done that well when they first started out, but then over time gained a large following, thus calling it a cult following. So here is my top 5 cult films of all time. From 1985, the movie Clue, based on the board game Clue. Love this movie. Did marginally well at the time. It wasn't too well received, but over time has really gotten a large following. How could you not love this movie? It's got a who's cast. I mean, Tim Curry as Wadsworth, the butler. Michael McKean is in there. Colleen Camp is in there. Eileen Brennan is in there. Martin Mull. The late, great Madeline Kahn. I mean, it's just a who's who of people at the time that were very popular. Michael McKean was in there as well. This movie is just so much fun. I mean, growing up, we played Clue all the time as kids. So when they said they were going to make a movie about it, I was like, wow, this is great. And when I went to see it in the theater, I was pleasantly surprised because back in the 80s and in high school, I was quite the punk rocker. I'm a big Kiss fan, but I loved my punk rock growing up. I was a skateboarder. You'd never know by this body. But I was pleasantly surprised to see the person playing Mr. Body, who is the person who is the owner of the mansion, who's technically blackmailing all these people and gets killed. Thus, the whole plot of the movie is who killed Mr. Body. Same way as it is in the board game. But the person playing Mr. Body was none other than Lee Ving, lead singer of the band Fear. Now, if you're a punk rocker, you've heard of the band Fear. They were infamously on Saturday Night Live and have been banned ever since. They were big fan, mainly due to John Belushi, who was a big punk rock fan. He got Lee Ving and Fear on, but big fan of that. So I just figured I'd mention that. It was just the coolest thing ever to see the lead singer of Fear as Mr. Body. And the story plays out well. It's just the same thing as you do in a board game. They're all trying to figure out who's who, and everybody's getting killed off one by one, little by little. And what was novel at the time is they filmed 4 endings, and you didn't know which ending you were going to get depending on which theater you went to. The 4th one was scrapped. I don't think they ever showed it. I don't know if they ever released it on any of the DVDs where Wadsworth killed everybody. I don't think that was. It may have been released. It's been a minute since I researched all the different endings. Usually, the versions came out where they just showed the endings one after the other, and it was just a lot of fun because you didn't know what you were going to get, and you had to go. I mean, most people, as soon as they saw it in the theater, friends spoke, and you knew what ending you were going to get because you didn't want to keep going back and seeing the same ending over and over again. Just a fun movie, silly movie. And it's just, every time it's on, I love to watch it. It's just a great movie. I haven't seen Clue. Go check it out. It's worth the time. It's very, very dated, very 80s for its time. And I thought I heard rumblings not that long ago. I could be wrong, of a remake of Clue. That would be interesting to see. But that is my number 5 favorite cult film. Clue from 1985. My number 4 from 1984. This one goes to 11. This is Spinal Tap. Now, if you gotta love this friggin' movie. I mean, it is just so much fun. It's basically a mockumentary of a band that didn't exist and all the trials and tribulations of their career and all the shit they went through because they're basically waning in popularity. And it's narrated, well, actually, it's done by Rob Reiner. And he's basically the interviewer through the whole movie, interviewing this band, Spinal Tap. And they all have the English accents, and except for Harry Shearer, he doesn't have an English accent. But Christopher Guest, who actually is British, you have Christopher Guest, there's Nigel Tufnell, you have Michael McKean. This second movie on this list with Michael McKean in it. Michael McKean as Derek St. Hubbins. Harry Shearer as Derek Smalls, and there's a revolving door of drummers because they all seem to explode for some reason. Or except for one who died in a bizarre gardening accident, if I remember correctly. And this is another movie where there's a who's who of people that appear in it. You have Fran Drescher that makes an appearance in it. Billy Crystal makes an appearance. Dana Carvey. Howard Hessman. It's just a who's who of 80s stars, because obviously it was from 84 and Clue was 85. So it's basically a lot of stars. And I just, as of doing this recording, realizing, I'm like, wow, Michael McKean made back-to-back on my cult list. That's pretty damn cool. So it just basically follows this band, and all the songs are memorable. You know, Hellhole, Big Bottom, Stonehenge, the whole scene where they're going to have like midgets dancing around this Stonehenge. I'm sorry, dwarfs, before I get yelled at. And the Stonehenge is so small, and it's just such crazy shit keeps happening to them. And it's so much fun. Go watch it. It's the whole term where Christopher Guest is Nigel Tufnell talking about how his Marshall amplifier, instead of going up to 10, but this goes to 11. So if you need that little bit extra, you just give that little bit more. And where are you going to go when you're already there? You just go up. You go up one more. This goes to 11.
These go to 11.
I mean, classic. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth it. Go get the soundtrack too. Smell the Glove. The soundtrack has got some great songs on it, all the songs from the movie. And they even made a few other ones, Break Like the Wind, and a couple of albums. And I know there is a sequel in the works. So I'm looking forward to that. I mean, see, figure 84, it's almost 40 years later. So looking forward to a sequel to This is Spinal Tap, and that is my number 4 cult film. My number 3 from 1993, a movie that is very near and dear to my heart because it basically was my whole high school existence, Dazed and Confused. I'm sure if you're watching this, you've seen Dazed and Confused. I mean, and here's another one, another ensemble cast of who's who of actors and actresses at the time that were up and coming. I mean, you had Matthew McConaughey in there. You had Jason London in there. Who else? Mila Jovovich. Who else was in there? Basically just a who's who. Oh, Ben Affleck. It's just an ensemble cast of all these young, talented people that just, I mean, 2 Oscar winners right there in that list. So it's just crazy. It tells a story it's set in last day of school from 1976, and shows us a young kid who's basically, they do this whole thing, which I don't know where this ever came from, where they basically go around and like with paddles and spank the shit out of people that are going to be freshmen. Never heard of that before. You know, comment it below if that's something that you guys had either in the 70s or 80s. We didn't do anything like that. We used to beat the shit out of each other, but there was no hazing thing like this. And then same thing they did with the girls, where they were just pouring shaving cream on them and syrup and all powder, all sorts of stupid shit. I don't know where that came from. I know the movie never says where it is. I know it's supposed to be basically taking place in rural Texas. So maybe that's something from that area, because a lot of it was based on the director of the movie, of him growing up. So I guess maybe that was something. Don't know anything about it. But it's basically last day of school, and they're all looking for a party. They go to a kegger later that night, and it's just crazy exploits along the way. A lot of drinking, a lot of pot smoking, some great classic cars. One of my favorite cars, a car I always wanted. GTO Judge. I wanted one of those fucking cars. One of these days I'll get one. I will. It's just a fun movie. And the soundtrack, forget it. One of my favorites, probably is my favorite soundtrack of all time. And they actually did 2 because it was so popular. There were so many great songs in there from all my favorite bands. Just great movie. And this is probably one of the most nostalgic movies for me, because it's basically what it was like in high school when I was going to high school. So it just takes me right back to being a kid again. So that is my number 3, 1993, Dazed and Confused. All right.
All right.
And number 2, another nostalgic one for reasons, if you watch the podcast, I've said many times over. So from 1979, number 2 is The Warriors. If it wasn't for The Warriors, I wouldn't be that Halloween collector. I wouldn't have a whole Halloween world around me and been obsessed with it, because the story goes back in 1980 when The Warriors was coming on HBO, me and my cousins, after trick-or-treating, were running home because we wanted to see The Warriors, because it was coming on, I believe, at 9 o'clock. So we watched The Warriors, and unbeknownst to me, after the movie, we're like, okay, we're all hanging out. My cousins would come over and sleep over on the weekends. coming up next, Halloween. We're like, Halloween? All right. Well, it was Halloween. It was October 31st, 1980. All right, let's watch this movie called Halloween. We didn't know anything about it because you got to remember, there was no social media, no nothing. And I was a kid at the time. I wasn't watching a ton of TV. Actually, I wasn't allowed to watch TV because we really only had one main TV in the living room, and my father pretty much controlled it. So if you didn't see the commercial for Halloween, you didn't know anything about it. So we didn't know anything about it. Comes on, fell in love with it. Scared the shit out of me. And that started my whole love for Halloween. It's all due to the Warriors. And that's not faulting the Warriors, if anything, but because it's a fantastic film. If you've never seen it, it's the gang, the Warriors, and basically they're going to Manhattan for this big giant meeting of all these gangs. And the one main leader of all the gangs, that basically, he's not the leader of the gangs, but it's the main gang, and he's the leader of that gang, Cyrus. He gets assassinated at this big meeting they have in Central Park. And then the Warriors get blamed for it, so the whole movie is all these different gangs coming after them one by one, trying to take them out because they killed Cyrus. And they're just basically trying to get back to Coney Island, New York. That's where their home base is. So along the way, they fight all these different gangs, and it's just so much fun. And it's just, now this is beyond nostalgic because it's just a lot of fun. It takes me right back to that night and seeing this movie a million times. It's got a great soundtrack. It's just, if you haven't seen The Warriors, go see it. Real good movie, and I think you'll enjoy it. So that is my number 2 cult film. And here we are at number 1. And there's no denying this one. From 1975, The Rocky Horror Picture Show. Love this film. Absolutely love it. And now that I'm thinking about it, not only did Michael McKean make the list twice in my cult movies, but Tim Curry. He's my number 5 in Clue, and now he's my number 1 Rocky Horror Picture Show. Didn't even think of that until as I'm talking about this. Certain people seem to show up in this cult list. Pretty cool. The Rocky Horror Picture Show is just such a fun thing. Soundtrack, the music, I love it. Listen to it all the time. And it's just when it came out, it was just such a strange movie. You know, the transvestite, basically, Dr. Frankenfurter is his name. And this just plays out like a giant musical, and he's trying to build like the perfect man. And which is, they call him Rocky Horror. And there's the whole exploits of everything that goes on at his castle. And he has Riff Raff, who is basically his Igor, and there's other people that work there, Magenta. And it's just so much fun. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Well, the whole story also plays out. Brian Bosworth and Susan Sarandon are at a wedding, and then they're on their way home, and they get lost. Actually, they get a flat tire, so they come upon the castle, and that's how the whole movie starts. So there they are in the castle, and all the exploits are going crazy, and this one's cheating on this one's cheating on that one, and it's got great, one of the great performances by the late, great Meatloaf. Hot Patootie, bless my soul. I mean, come on, how could you go wrong with that? So it's just, I don't know what else I can say about it. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a fun watch. A lot of crazy shit goes on in there. You got to do the time warp, which is classic. Shows up at a lot of, it's usually played at weddings, and all sorts of crazy stuff goes on in that movie. I just can't say enough about it. And actually, as of this recording, depending on when I edit this and release it, we're in that horror movie podcast. We do a watch along movie every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern time. And the next movie, as of this recording, so hopefully I'll have this out before then. We're doing a watch along of the Rocky Horror Picture Show from 1975. So that's going to be a lot of fun because I'm looking really forward to that. We just did watch along of Halloween. I'll throw a link up here. Go check it out. It was a lot of fun. So next is the Rocky Horror Picture Show, my number 1 cult film, favorite cult film of all time. And there you have it. Those are my cult films. Do me a favor. Let me know what your top 5 cult films of all time are. Maybe some are similar. Maybe some are completely different. It's very subjective. It's all what you think, or a lot of them are considered cult movies, but it's all subjective. This is all just my opinion. I want to hear your opinion. I want to hear what your top 5 cult films are. Let me know. Maybe I missed one. And I think to myself, oh shit, I should have put that on my list. Could have very easily missed it. So if you like this, check out some of the other content on the channel. Be sure to hit that like button. It helps people find this channel. If you're into collectibles, mainly all the Halloween stuff behind me, go check me out on Instagram at that Halloween movie collector, where my collection is, updates about this channel, and all sorts of Halloween content. is over there. If you're a Halloween collector, go check me out in Facebook land at the Halloween and Michael Myers Collectors Group, which is basically a group for collectors and anything to do with Halloween, masks. People are in there doing rehauls, custom masks. Great place to go. You can find that Halloween Movie Collector on Twitter as well. Basically updates about this channel, things going on. And while you're in Twitter world, go check out that Horror Movie Podcast Twitter page, which is our weekly podcast, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. And there's basically just updates about that. We're going to be doing polls and rankings and things that maybe people would like us to do. Go check it out. Also, when you're in Facebook land, there is a group for that Horror Movie Podcast. Basically the same thing, updates, get information from people and updates on things that we're doing in the podcast. And there you go. Thought this would be a fun thing to do. Go down memory lane, think of some cult movies, and a lot of movies I still watch all the time, and some of my favorite movies of all time on this list. So do me a favor. Like and subscribe to the channel if you like this list and some of the other lists I'm doing and some of the other content going forward. There's going to be a lot more coming out. Make sure you check out that Horror Movie Podcast every Sunday night, 8 p.m., where we just basically talk about horror movies. We talk about comedies, music. We do beer reviews, what we're watching, movies reviews, have a couple of drinks, and just get in trouble. So do me a favor, stop by, say hello, say you watched the channel. Be sure to tell your friends about the channel. Talk about it in your sleep. Tell all your enemies about it. Yell out the back window at your neighbor and the neighbor's dog and tell them about it. And until then, I will see you soon.